How Trump's pick for Secretary of State feels about Russia, North Korea and S.yria. If confirmed, Mike Pompeo will serve as the next Secretary of State for the United States as dangerous crises loom with Russia, China and Iran. Pompeo, a former Republican congressman from Kansas with a reputation for a hawkish approach to American security, has been a lightning rod for criticism from rights advocates and some Democrats who worry he'll lead the president into war. In his testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and previous statements as the director of the CIA, here is a record of what Pompeo has said about foreign challenges facing the U.S. President Trump is in the process of deciding how to respond to an alleged chemical attack in Syria that has been blamed on forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar Assad, who Russia has pledged to protect. Trump taunted Russia Wednesday, saying on Twitter that missiles will be coming, nice and new and smart. The chemical attack happened after Trump told a crowd in Ohio March 29 that he'd like to withdraw troops from Syria very soon. Pompeo joined other members of the president's national security staff to warn that doing so would be a mistake, CNN reported. In an interview with CBS News March 11, Pompeo described Trump's approach to earlier allegations of chemical attacks on rebel-held neighborhoods in the East Ghouta neighborhood of the Syrian capital. We have a higher standard to make sure we understand precisely what took place, precisely who did it so that our response can meet the threat, Pompeo said. Trump is preparing for a proposed summit in May with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to discuss the North's nuclear weapons program, which Kim has said is aimed at deterring a U.S. threat. Pompeo said at the Aspen Institute last July that the administration's priority is to separate Kim from the nuclear weapons he controls. It's one thing for him to have one missile capable of landing in Denver, Colorado, and it's another thing for him to have an entire arsenal, and there are things we can do to keep that capability out of his hands, Pompeo said. He added that there's room for diplomacy. We need China to help us to convince Kim it's not in his interest to go down that path. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping rocked international stock markets in the past few weeks with tit-for-tat threats to impose tariffs on each other's countries that would affect hundreds of billions of dollars in trade. Trump is also poised to decide in May on whether to kill or stick with the nuclear deal with Iran negotiated by Trump's predecessor Barack Obama. Pompeo opposed the agreement, which limited Iran's nuclear activities for a time, while lifting international sanctions. A year after it was signed, he wrote that while the deal prevents Iran from developing nuclear weapons for a few years, provisions in the deal that allow Iran to produce nuclear fuel on an industrial scale in the future means that eventually it will be able to develop nuclear weapons. Congress must act to change Iranian behavior, and, ultimately, the Iranian regime, Pompeo wrote in an op-ed for Fox News in July 2016. More recently, Pompeo told CBS News that while Obama didn't want to upset Iran during the nuclear negotiations, the situation now is different. This administration has taken a much stronger approach, a much more aggressive posture with respect to countering Iran, Pompeo said. Pompeo has historically had some choice words for Russia, which U.S. intelligence agencies said sought to sway the 2016 presidential election in Trump's favor and continues to meddle in U.S. politics even now. I have every expectation that they will continue to try and do that, but I'm confident that America will be able to have a free and fair election, and that we will push back in a way that is sufficiently robust that the impact they have on our election won't be great, Pompeo told the BBC in January.